So in Delaware, for 10 years, there has been a state lawmaker who has tried to pass a death with dignity bill. And death with dignity basically allows terminally ill people to end life on their own terms. They're going to die. They're currently suffering. They have no options left on the table. All the medical possibilities are no longer available to them. And so the question is, should you just prolong their suffering, or do you allow them to end life on their own terms in the way they want to end it, in whatever way is deemed acceptable? I find that to be the humane thing in that situation that, man, no one wants to be in. And so there is a lawmaker that's been pushing that sort of bill in Delaware for 10 years. And his name is Paul Baumbach. And a couple of years ago, the Center for Free Thought Equality does endorsements. And I found this interesting. Paul Baumbach was endorsed by the Center for Free Thought Equality, and they noted this at the very bottom. Baumbach is a Unitarian Universalist humanist. So this is a non-religious state lawmaker, which I found very interesting as well. Like, this guy's doing the job of a state lawmaker, and he's also openly non-religious. So he's been pushing for this for a really long time. And this year, he managed to pass a bill that would actually make this thing happen. So his bill, it's House Bill 140, in case anyone wants to look it up. And the thing is, these types of bills tend to divide people between, people with compassion and those who make excuses, usually religious ones, for why people should be forced to suffer indefinitely. And the Delaware bill would only apply to people, look at this, it would only apply to people who have less than 6 months to live, are capable of making an informed decision, and are acting voluntarily. And 2 doctors would have to sign off on all of those things. And Baumbach said the bill includes a bunch of safeguards. It would force the patients to self-administer the medication, like they would have to swallow the pill. A doctor could not put it down their throats. It has moral objection opt-outs for medical providers. Like, if you're a doctor who doesn't want to participate in this for your own personal reasons, you don't have to. Those are acceptable guardrails. I will say, I heard from one person who said, I don't like the rule that says it has to be self-administered, because there are people who are suffering who don't have the physical ability to take a pill and get it down. What should happen, this person told me, is that if they say they want to do it, they would get the help they need to take whatever pill it is. I'm not an expert on those things. I don't know if one way is better than the other, but whatever. The bill passed. It went, I'm not going to bore you with the legislative hurdles, because there were some hurdles, but it did pass. And in order to go through with it, there are more safeguards, by the way. In order to go through with this thing, the patient would have to make 2 oral requests for the medicine, then a written request, then get that written request signed by 2 witnesses, then wait 48 hours before the doctor can prescribe the drugs. Like, there are so many things you would have to do to make sure, like, we're not just shoving people into this option because they feel like they have no other choice. This is meant to be a last resort for patients with no options, not a first resort for people who are, like, just depressed. You know what I mean? It's humane. It's a good thing. Right now, only 10 states have these types of laws. And honestly, a recent Gallup poll, let me show you this. A recent Gallup poll from, I think, this year, maybe last year, actually asked people about this. And they said, should doctors be allowed to end patients' life through painless means, or should doctors be allowed to assist patient commit suicide? Wording on that is weird. But basically, they were saying, depending on how we word this, do you see a difference in the answers if we use the word suicide, if we just say end a patient's life by painless means? But you could see here, by and large, a majority of Americans say, yeah, we should allow doctors to help patients end their suffering. So this is popular policy across the board. And yet, as you can guess, plenty of religious conservatives oppose it. They say that taking your own life, no matter the reason, is an affront to God. You have to let nature take its course, even if that means torturing someone, basically, even if they're terminally ill, in constant pain, have no hope of recovery. They believe that the God who gave you that pain should be allowed to torture you as long as God wants. This is from the Diocese of Wilmington, Delaware, actually. Check this out. They issued a statement about this bill. Physician-assisted suicide is wrong for Delaware and Maryland. And this is what they said. There is no justification to take an innocent life. The same argument they use to oppose abortion rights, they're saying, no, we want older people who are suffering to just keep suffering, because that would also be taking an innocent life. Even though the person is saying, forget the innocence thing, I'm dying, I'm in pain, let me choose the way I go instead of just waiting for this disease to take over. Like, how cruel could this diocese, how much more cruel could this diocese get? We're not talking about people who are just sad and want to end their life on a whim. We are talking about patients whose lives are not going to get any better, and the doctors know it, and the patient knows it, and their families know it. There is no cure for what ails them. Medical technology is not going to change in their case in the next 6 months, and doctors can attest to that. I feel like the moral thing to do here is let patients end life on their own terms, having said their goodbyes without anyone fearing going to jail because of it. But and I want to go back to the legislative side of this. Baumbach has been proposing this for 10 years, since 2015. Never even came up for a vote until this year, and it passed in the Delaware House 21-16. It passed in the House. Then it got to the Senate, and whatever, there was a log jam and people didn't want to vote for it. Democrats didn't want to vote for it. And then they managed to be able to vote on it again. And it finally passed, like last month, 11-10. He finally got this bill passed. All it needs is a governor's signature at that point. The governor is a Democrat, John Carney in Delaware. But here's the thing. No one knows what John Carney is going to do. And it doesn't sound like anyone knows what the fate of this bill is going to be. There's a group that advocates for this legislation. It's called Compassion and Choices. They issued a press release in late June. Delaware legislature passes medical aid in dying bill after 10 years of debate. And they said in here, I urge Governor Carney to honor the courageous advocacy of some of the people pushing for this bill and the existing pleas of terminally ill constituents who simply desire this time-tested option so that they can die peacefully on their own terms. That's from the head and CEO of the Compassion and Choices Action Network. And they said the data shows that as drafted, this bill harms nobody. It's a good bill, they are saying. And yet, the governor hasn't decided what to do. I looked this up, and through all the reporting I saw, it said that after a bill arrives at his desk, he has 10 days to sign it or veto it. And if he doesn't do either, the bill automatically becomes law. But this bill passed in June, and it's not law. So what happened? Well, it turned out the bill is not at his desk. The Speaker of the House is just holding on to it, which is weird. I actually contacted Baumbach's office, and what he's told me is that the bill is now sitting in the office of the chief clerk of the state house. The governor's office has not requested it, and so the 10-day clock has not started. But I asked him, what if the governor never requests the bill? Well, Delaware House rules say that if legislation is passed, and this is passed, it automatically goes to the governor 14 days before the November election, which is to say the governor is going to have to make a decision on this. And if he doesn't want to do it now, he will have to do it in early November at the latest. So does he want to sign it now or veto it now or wait another few months? Now, given that Governor Carney is term limited, he is not up for re-election. He's going to run for mayor of Wilmington, which, again, it's a mayoral election. I'm guessing his veto or passage of this bill is not going to make or break whether he's going to become mayor after being governor. I don't think there's a good political reason for him to avoid doing the right thing here. It's not like signing the bill is going to hurt his future electoral chances. but I don't know what he's going to do. Baumbach didn't seem to know either. I hope he signs it. And if and when that happens, it will be the result of a years-long campaign by an openly humanist politician who had one final chance to pass this legislation because he's retiring at the end of this session as well. Like, Baumbach did as much as he could do, and because of his fight, people who are struggling to survive against their own will may finally be able to find peace on their own terms. But that only happens if this governor signs the bill. So listen, if you live in Delaware, send emails to the governor's office. Tell him to request this bill and sign this bill. It's the compassionate thing to do.